How's everybody doing? It's that afternoon after lunch, people getting the itis, falling asleep, all that stuff. I heard you guys had pasta. Is that true? Tacos? I didn't eat. I apologize. Just to introduce myself, my name is Marco Matos. I'm a senior program manager on the developer experience team for Windows. Now, real quick, I need to do the test. How many people are XAML developers in the room? Let me do it a different way. How many people are not XAML developers in the room? Okay. Prior to coming here, how many people actually knew about XAML and Windows 8? Gotcha. So you guys knew everything there is to know. I can just go sit down. I'm done. You guys know all about contracts, right? You saw Jensen's keynote. Everything's done. Cool. So one of the things I want to talk about is basically how to make your app shine using a XAML app. And the way you actually do that is by integrating with the subsystems of Windows 8. To give you guys a little bit of background, I started about 5.5, 6 years ago at Microsoft as an intern on a very small little team called Jolt. Anybody know what that team became? Jolt became WPF/E. Does anybody know what that became? Silverlight. Okay, there we go. We got some .NET folks in the room. So I'm a XAML guy through and through. I've devoted my entire career talking about XAML, implementing XAML, developing in XAML, using the product. So I can't tell you the amount of angst I've had over the last few months of not being able to talk about publicly what we've been doing. So I know you guys have had some angst. I mean, I've heard some rumors about it. There's been some chatter somewhere around, who knows, not saying anything. But I just wanted to say we've also been feeling that as well. We've been really eager to come here to build, kind of tell you guys what we're doing, and really explain to the world, hey, XAML is a first-class citizen as a developer platform for Windows 8. Do not fear, browse aside. What we're really doing is really dedicating all the stuff for XAML and Windows 8, and what we're talking about is the net new for Metro-style apps. Now, I've heard a lot of chatter about, well, what happens in the old world? What happens for my old .NET stuff? What happens to Silverlight and WPF? And again, I think Steven and the keynote kind of did a good job talking about it, but it exists, and that's the net new, right? It's still there. It's not changed. All those apps continue to run as part of Windows 8. But we're really focused on explaining to you guys the new stuff, all the additions that we've been making, and it's really, the investment is heavily around the Metro-style apps. So a quick little interactive. This is kind of like an insanity workout for you guys today. How many people actually were here for Joe Stegman's talk earlier this morning? All 6 of you, cool. He's my boss, so you can give him crap. It was a fantastic talk, I can't lie. But let's see if we can outdo him a little bit. So one of the things Joe did was give you guys a basic whirlwind, right? There's XAML, you guys have a lot of experience doing XAML, but now there's Windows 8, there's Metro, there's the reimagining, there's the fast, there's the fluid, there's all the buzzwords you heard at the keynotes. But what does all that stuff mean? What is the new stuff that XAML developers really care about? And Joe's talk, if you hadn't seen it, I definitely recommend looking it up on the Rewind early this morning. But definitely look at that talk because it gives you the whirlwind 101. Let's just talk about XAML in the new world. And he does a really good job of showing you what's old, some of the things that you are really familiar with, and what's new, and sort of bringing you to the new world. He gives you a good intro on some of the new controls. He gives you a good intro on some of the lifecycle semantics. But he kind of stops at that point just because there's so much new value that's coming with Windows 8 and Metro-style apps using XAML. One of the things to keep in mind is, though, for this talk, I really want to delve into some 4 deep areas. How many people actually went to Ben's Source talk? It was at the same time as Joe's. Okay. That was a real good deep dive of sort of the lifecycle semantics. That talked about sort of in a language agnostic way what Windows 8 as a subsystem is doing to sort of make your app alive and well. The first half of this talk will actually talk about those lifecycle semantics. So for those of you that don't know it, no fear. We'll go through the model. We'll talk a little bit about it. We'll talk about what it means to suspend and resume. You guys saw all the demos with Sanofsky and Alesh where they're like, open app, open app, open app, open app, and then they spin off taskbar in the classic, and it's like, whoa, everything is suspended, and there's like red words. What is that? I'll talk a lot about what that means and actually what you can do for your app and on behalf of your user to do the right thing in doing those semantics. Afterwards, we'll actually talk about the multiple activation points for XAML apps. So how many people are sick of the word charms? You can be honest, it's okay. No, I'm joking. Charms is the real net value add of Windows 8, right? This is talking about how all these apps play nicely together. They integrate with the system directly, and the beauty of it is the app only has to do what it cares about. and the other apps do what it cares about. So app A and app B never have to know about each other, and they magically light up. We'll talk about what it means to be a source app, what it means to be a target app, and actually has to be activated for multiple scenarios. So we talked about being a source and being activated, but then we'll also talk about actually integrating them. We talked about targeting and being activated, but then we'll talk about sourcing some of these charms and these contracts. You guys have seen swiping in from the right, you've seen search, you've seen share. What does that really mean? How does your app actually get an opportunity to present UI and actually respond to those events to the end user? And again, for my mom and dad who have no idea what's going on, they can't even spell XAML, they literally are just going to sit there all day and try to play around. And the idea is your app should light up these features because these are the new paradigms we're teaching in Windows 8. And the more apps that play part of this ecosystem, the more friendly it feels, the more holistic the system is. So that's kind of the net value add there. And lastly, we're going to tie everything together and talk about navigation semantics. Navigation has existed in XAML technologies for a couple years now, but it's a little different, and it's a lot easier, actually, with Windows 8 and Metro-style apps. And I want to walk through sort of some of the new things, some of the old things. The goal, though, if I'm successful in about the next 55 minutes, is by the end of this talk, you'll take your 101 XAML app, whether it's the Antoine's Search Bing app, or it's your very own app that you played around, or whatever app you have, and add all the new features that Windows 8 allows you to light up. And again, it's around PLM, or Process Lifetime Manager. It's around Lifecycle. It's around really supporting all the multiple activation points. It's about getting your app in the face of the user and allowing them to interact with it in the way they want to. And it's about you providing the content to multiple other areas and the way you want to. So it's really about connecting the app and the end user and really making the ecosystem as friendly as possible. And then again, we'll keep the common paradigm of the navigation stack, and we'll talk a lot about how all these things play together. So if you're not here for that, you can walk out. I will not be offended. Go ahead. Do not worry about it. So a lot of the decks have been showing kind of like these mission statements, these one sentence, why do I care, what's interesting about it? And a lot of these things are kind of like a dance, right? It's like a little bit of a tango. And I picture the scenario where you've got one lady on the side and one guy on the side, and they've never met with each other. And then automatically, boom, they meet, and it's like this beautiful, sexy dance, and they know exactly what's going on. And I clearly can't dance. I apologize. But the idea is, without meeting, they work well. And that's exactly what Windows 8 is trying to do. You integrate with Windows as a subsystem, and your app lights up for your user. You do the right thing within your app, and your end user automatically, without unbeknownst to them, it just starts working. So this is the way one app can share with another. This is one way you can search from the desktop. This is one way your app can search within itself. This is one way you can connect to devices. This is one way you can actually light up different scenarios all from within your app without having to implement both sides of the coin. And that's a lot of net new that's coming out. So one of the things I want to stop and pause and say, listen, we've been opening up the floodgates to you guys. We've been firing down the hose, and you guys have been drinking from it. And that was actually a quote from Jensen. In the next 3 days, you're going to get the dam to break, and the water's going to flow. So I encourage you to take as much as you can, come back, review the sessions, go on MSDN, really enjoy the experience this week for the next 2 days and learning what's net new. But again, all this stuff is online. You get to review it as much as you want. So let's dive right in. One of the first things I want to do is actually look at the Memories app. So how many people have their build machines? That should be everybody, right? You all got one, because I didn't. I can have yours if you like. So if you're like me, you've actually cracked open your machine before you actually read any instructions. So let's actually do that. So this is not mine, and again, I'm taking donations. But this is actually just like your machine. If you notice, it doesn't have any of the cool apps just because my friend Olner and Hamid have decided to make fun of me and take all the fun stuff away. But one app I want to focus on is the Memories app. So this was actually built by a member of our team. His name is Vincent Sabal, fantastic developer. He's actually a tester, but in this mode, he actually put on his dev hat and went to work. We were guided by two of great designers within Microsoft, and they actually helped design this app, so it doesn't look like a 6-year-old did it like I would make it. So let's jump in. One of the first things you've seen, and countless, by the time you've played around with the model a little bit, you understand. I click on a tile, I see a splash screen, boom, my app gets activated. And again, I'm dissecting the app, so as I walk through it, I'll talk over it, and then I'll show you at the end what we're actually doing. So hopefully you can see my fingers. You guys can see the finger punches, right? I did not mean to click that. Let's not do that. So I click on Memories, I click on a tile, and the splash screen pops up. And again, you can do this, so follow along if you will. I'll show you some tips and tricks about the app and some cool things about it. But one of the things you notice is the splash screen showed up, and then it actually animated away. And you heard Jensen talk about the animations library. All of that is free, right? All of that automatically works by default. Your app has yet to show UI when the splash screen is up. It's a JPEG. There's a few talks talking about splash screen and tiles and how that works. But the idea is you set something in your app. You say, this is my splash screen file. This is what I want to show. And the shell will take care of showing that for you. There's a lot of shells and shows in that. Once your app is ready to be activated, you decide that. So you handle one of the activation events, and then you decide, hey, let me set some content to my window, and let me call the activate on my window and bring it in the foreground. And that's what you saw. So now this is all XAML UI. So I can pan around, and what I also want you to notice is this app was entirely built using our navigation stack. So when you see animations flying around, you see a combinations of the Windows personality and a bit of some custom extra things, a couple extra components, just to make sure the XAML actually moves in and out fluid along with the animation system. So I can pan along, and this is actually using a lot of the new controls. Specifically, in this case, we're using grid view, where I have each item is a custom control that we've made up of different pictures and text. And this entire app is really about creating a memory. It's not a photo viewer, it's more of a scrapbooking app. I can actually take pictures with my camera, my phone, whatever it is, put them on my device, create albums based on them, and annotate them and make fun of people. And I do that a lot to my team, and I'll hopefully show you that in a second. The second component I want to talk about is sort of lifetime semantics. The way we built this app was by design, and you might disagree with this, but the point is, every time you start this app, it'll start up with the same 4 or 5 albums. Those are canned. Those are included with the package manifest. And the reason why we've done that is for demos, but for you guys to actually play around with the app and feel and see how it works. This app really lights up when you actually have content. It'll kind of stink if we just gave you an app and say, good luck, add your own memories to it and take it away. But we wanted to give you some content. We wanted to make sure you guys could see what a real app looked like and what it did. So again, I can pan around. You've seen some steps. And I can actually click on an album. So what you saw, that animation, that's a little bit beyond what the Windows personality gives you. That's actually employing some overrides on the navigation stack. And that's the ability of taking that rectangle, animating up. Once I've detected my page has been transitioned out. And that's an important step to remember. So I've got this cute little girl. And if you notice, I have a lot of different things I can do here. I've animated some text. How many people remember the app bar? Have you guys seen this already? So the idea of the app bar is there's 2 sides from the screen, from the left to right, which is owned by the shell. And these are the pixels where you can shape in. So from the right to left, I get the shell's charms. And then from the left to right, I actually get some other apps that come around. And that's the back stack. And we'll talk again about that. Those are the apps that are sort of in the background, while this app is actually in the foreground. But those on the sides, from top to bottom, that's all your UI. You have the ability to create any sort of commanding. So whether you want to put navigation in here, whether you want to actually employ buttons and actual semantics of your app, this is your place. So what we actually have is sort of the edit function. Once I've clicked on the edit function, you'll notice that 2 things light up. I can add a page, I can reorder a page. I have the ability to manipulate the app all through the app bar. And it's a very similar concept throughout all of Windows. The idea for this app is your mechanics live in that app bar. And again, that's one of the paradigms that we'll talk about. So I can actually add a different page and choose from one of the templates. And I get a canned template, and I can even get some canned text, although that template doesn't have any. And I can even add some media. But for now, we'll just keep it blank. The other thing I can do is actually, let's take a cute picture here. There we go. That's adorable. And then we can do a couple different things. I can actually crop the media. And in here, with the gesture for zooming and panning, I can actually grow this a little bit and move it side to side. And because I'm using high-res images, it doesn't look pixelated. And this was by design for the app. And again, this is all app-driven and all possible within your Metro-style apps. I can actually save it, and boom, I've made an edit. Now, while I said before is the 4 or 5 canned albums never change, for the lifetime of I'm actually using this, it'll stay the same because I'm actually doing implicit saving. And it's something else we'll need to talk about. The new world is not about clicking save, clicking save as, and making sure as I go the user is mindful of it. It's about you being mindful on behalf of the user. There's an implicit save model that we want you guys to employ. And that's what we're doing here. But again, once this app gets killed later by the Process Lifetime Manager, when I start it up again, these edits are gone because I'm working on these canned albums. The other thing I can actually do is click on an object and actually add adorners. And this is actually using another grid view. But this case, we get some sort of selection model. So I can actually click on whatever that is and bring it, drag it out, and bring it over here. And I can do this with multiple different objects, right? And I can hit save, because I'm done editing. And hopefully, that should have updated. Oh, it's behind there. But you get the idea of what we're doing with that app. So the other thing we can do is I talked about actually building a memory, and that's what I want to show you. So since coming to build, I've actually been taking pictures. Come on, there it is. Oh, look at Olner. Olner's in the front, everybody. He'll be giving a talk later on touch gestures. I implore you to come and make fun of him and sort of heckle as much as you possibly can. Thanks, Olner. So here we actually have some of the things what I've been talking about, right? I literally created this album during Joe's talk. Don't tell him I wasn't paying attention. I literally created this album this morning. I just added a bunch of pictures. I had the ability to everything from my pictures library, and that actually used some of the capabilities. It uses one of the file pickers APIs, which I can show you in a second. But the idea is the app is now being interactive, right? I can grab stuff from the end user's file system and actually employ them in my app. And this is all using some of the Stream APIs and whatnot. So you can actually see I've tagged some of the apps. I saw the beer guy from up top, and then I actually went after it. And there's Hamid at the end doing I don't know what. So let's actually get out of here now and get back to some slides. So that was dissecting the Memories app. And again, the point of that was actually taking an app that we've already built, something you have in front of you today, and you guys can play around with it, and I encourage you to do so, and showing you some of the paradigms that we think will be around for Windows 8 Metro style. So again, what did we see? We saw the tile, we saw the splash screen, and then we saw the app UI. And I'll take the aid of my creepy finger friend and show you exactly what you're doing, right? You're clicking on a tile. This is commonplace. We're beating a dead horse at this point, right? But the point of that is actually different. We're trying to figure out, now that your app UI is up and running, what should you be doing? So once your app is running, you now own all the XAML content. You own the entire window. It is all yours. We are completely out of your way. Your app is considered running. There's actually something called an execution state. And in the low-level APIs, you'll see this is called the running state. Your app is in the foreground. It's being interactive. However, when you start switching away, and I remind you again for Lesh's demo or Steven's demo, where he starts pulling them out, and then he shows you in Task Manager how they all get suspended, the process manager has at some point later decided to suspend your app. And the way that works is this. Once your app gets switched away from, you get about 5 seconds for the end user to switch back to it without anything happening. And that's for the fast switching mechanics. If I want to check a quick email, oh, no, I don't have email, go back to my movie, boom, the movie keeps on going as if nothing had happened. However, after those initial 5 seconds, you'll get an event to your app that says, hey, you are being suspended. What should you be doing? That suspended event fires into your app, and that's your opportunity to save and be prepared for termination. In the case in which you've been suspended, and at one point the user says, you know what, I actually want to go back to that app, you get something called the resuming event. But resuming is a little bit different than being activated. The difference is now you are actually living in resident memory, meaning everything you've allocated on disk still is there. You don't have to worry about rehydrating anything. You don't have to recreate main page.xaml. You don't have to recreate all your user controls. They still exist as they were before. The only thing that happens during suspension is your threads stop getting processed, meaning you're no longer running in your main loop. But you still live in resident memory. And the reason why that is for fast switching. Your app, once it gets resumed, boom, you're right back to store one, and you're running again as you were before. However, at some point, if you're in the suspended state for long enough, the system's going to detect some memory pressure. It's going to say, you know what, you have 75 apps running. This is not okay right now. We need to conserve some space for some of the running apps right now. So we'll detect low memory pressure, and we'll actually terminate your app. You don't get an event for this because your threads aren't running. So it's impossible to notify you at this point. That's why the guidelines, and we'll talk about this a little more, the guidelines are once you get a suspending event, prepare for termination at that point because you can assume you're going down. If you don't in fact go down, you'll get the resuming event, and that's how you know you've been from suspended to running. If you do go down, you get terminated, and the next thing that happens, if they click on your tile or they actually go back to you in the backstack, you get an activation. And you can tell the difference as an end user by saying, if I get a splash screen, I know I'm being activated because I wasn't running before, to if I just switch back to it and the UI comes up automatically, that means it's resuming. And those are sort of the semantics between the life cycles. So what should you do for termination? Well, you have the onSuspending event on your app object. And for those of you from XAML development skills, understand what the paradigms of the app object, this is your central place, app-wide, that you get to understand anything that's going on that all parts of your app need to worry about. You have activation through here, you have suspending, you have lifecycle semantics. This is very different than the old world where in Silverlight or in WPF you had an exiting event or you had Windows closing and you had all these paradigms. This is very different. This is your app, your entire app that's there, listens for this event and detects state and what it should do for you. You should always understand your user's intention for saving. And what I mean by that is, on those apps that I was running on, or in the Memories app, I was explicitly saving at some points, but at other points, if I added a new album, there is no save button. And I can run through that demo later, but the idea is when you create an album, hey, you should just save what I've created. And at that point, that's when we do that. We also detect on suspending, if you're in the middle of an operation, at that point, we also do another save. And again, a lot of you coming from the old world with .NET, you guys are wondering about serialization of your state, serialization of your data. Hey, how do I get XAML down? How do I get UI elements and framework elements? We have all your familiar serialization APIs, and they exist in a namespace as part of WinRT. And that was a conscious decision, right? It shouldn't be significantly different for you to save and to understand when your app is going down and how to write out to a file. And that's one of the paradigms we'll show you. This is straight out of the code. For every SDK sample that you see and that you download, this is what you'll see. You guys will provide you a class called suspensionmanager.cs, and I think we have a CPP one for the C++ developers. And the idea is this is our class. This is an example of what we think you guys should do on preparing for termination. And again, it's our guidelines, but it's up to you what you want to do. But the way Suspension Manager works is it uses the async pattern, and you see that by the await and the await keyword here. And it allows you to write out it allows you to keep a dictionary, a key value pair of string and objects, and allows you to serialize them to a file. And the idea is, once you're going down, you know what? All the state that I care about, whether it's a little bit, whether it's a lot, whether you want to save state of framework elements, whether you want to save actual internal app state, whatever it is you think is important to bring up fresh UI to make sure your user is not interrupted, this is your chance to do it. You also see here in the first and third lines of code, we're actually using deferral semantics. And deferral semantics are very prevalent throughout WinRT. It provides you the ability to say to the system, hey, in the middle of handling this, don't kill me in case I'm taking too long. And the deferral semantics actually have a little bit of buffer for you. So you see this with some of the share contracts, if you're actually sending a file somewhere, or the play to contract, if you're actually taking a long time to make a connection. These semantics allow the system to take care of everything for you. You don't have to worry about it as much. So resuming for suspension. Well, there is a resuming event, but I also told you your app lives in resident memory. So why should I care about this? What should I be doing? Well, you can also think about scenarios around rehydrating all your live data. If you're listening to a feed and all of a sudden you go away and you come back, because I know we're all listening to feeds this week, right? You want to know what's been new in the last 15 minutes since you haven't been there. The idea is when you get resumed, you show a little progress ring or you do what you want to do, but the idea is that's your opportunity to just refresh all your network queries. Everything that you want to show fresh that hasn't been downloaded to your app yet, this is your opportunity. And those are some of the paradigms. For activation, which we'll talk about in a second, that's, again, your initial point into the entry of your app. I have to show you one more slide on it, and I have to use my friend the creepy finger. But again, we're actually clicking on a tile, and this is how you launch for activation from a tile. However, if you were paying attention during Jensen's and Steven's keynotes, they showed you multiple places you could activate apps. Anybody recognize this? This is the file picker. You guys, whenever you're using in memories, if you're adding a new photo or in any of your apps, if you're using Pickstream or whatnot, and you have an open file dialog or the file picker, this is what you'll see. But if you notice, I'm not only just looking at my documents and pictures and musics and videos and et cetera, I'm actually looking at other apps. And in this case, I'm actually going to activate Socialite to handle the picking scenario for me. What this does is this indicates to Socialite, hey, wake up and paint some UI for this particular scenario. So let's actually do that. And hopefully, I can actually do it right here. Let's see, what's the best machine for this? So just to prove it's an activation, I'm going to switch to a second laptop. And whoops, don't tell my mom. And here we go. So in the other machine, I had memories running, which is why I want to actually use a second machine. And plus, this is a non-touch machine, so I also want to show you that memories can be used with either touch or keyboard and mouse. But if I actually invoke the share charm, or the search charm, you'll see this view. This allows you to actually search your desktop. This allows you to search your apps. This allows you to search your files. But you also see that all the apps that participate in the search contract light up here. I have Build, I have Near Me, I have NoteSpace, I have Internet Explorer, and I also have Memories. So one of the things I can do is actually type in Skate and click on Memories, and all the albums that happen to relate to that particular search query show up within Memories. And again, boom, I'm activated. I've been told I've been activated for search. It's up to you how you want to handle it. You can navigate to a search page. You can actually show some fancy UI, or you can not care and show just your regular UI. But this is your first chance to actually paint. However, once you've been activated for search or for tile or for launch, it's all the same. You're now in the running state. Now you can interact with your app. So from here, if I've done a pretty good job developing my app, I have an ability to actually navigate back to the home page, and I can continue interacting with my app in any way, shape, or form that I choose as a user. And the reason why this is important is because your app could be activated as many different ways as you choose, and as many different ways as the user wants to use your app. And that's one of the important things to start thinking about. So let's switch out here and go back to some slides. So I talked to you about three different scenarios, right? You can click on a tile, you get launched. I can activate through the search charm, you get the search. But there are a couple different ones. On launch is actually consolidated to different ones. How many people understand sort of the tile mechanics and have heard about the live tiles and secondary tiles? Not a lot of people. I encourage you. That's a very deep topic, and I won't go through a lot. But I will say what you've seen today on my screen are just still tiles. Jensen talked a little bit about the live tile semantics. He also talked a little bit about secondary tiles, which allows you to deep link into your app. All of these, including toast notifications, will come through this event. You get your context based on the event args of what are happening into your app. So if you need a deep link, you'll find it there. If you just get activated for tile, you'll get it here. And this is sort of the paradigm that's saying, you know what, somebody has clicked on something based on a basic set of UI, and they've spawned up my app. You just saw on search activated, and this is when you've ever not been running, again, not running, and your app has been activated through the search pane. At this point, you'll get this method override, and you'll have some event args on the query text on what you've been searched for. On sharing, this is the great scenario where I have data in app A, and I want to activate app B in a separate window and actually provide some UI to handle whatever data app A is providing me. This is your method override for that. You also get on file picker activated. And again, that's the I'm open file dialog. I actually click on the file picker, and I actually activate my app for that particular scenario. And lastly, you get on file activated. This is if you want to register for protocol handlers. If there's a particular file you care about, an extension, you can actually register for that extension and say, you know what, tell the OS I own this file. I want to be the one that handles any type of UI in response for a user clicking on this file. So responding to an activation, what are some of the things you should do? Well, again, it's providing content to your window. It's whatever you want to do to set up your initial landing page for UI. You do this based on your context. We also talked about reloading state, and this is the time you want to do that. Because you've been activated, presumably at one point you were running before, then you were switched out, and you've been suspended. And at that point, based on our earlier discussion, that was your opportunity to save state. Now that you've been activated, this is your opportunity to reload that state. So you'll understand your previous execution state, whether you've not been running at all, or you've actually been terminated by the system, or you came back for the suspended state. You always get that information regardless of how you've been activated. At this point, you also, if you're using the navigation framework, you can activate and navigate to the best view for your user scenario at that point in time. You have the ability of detecting why you've been activated and then actually navigating to a particular page. So what you saw in Memories is the search page is what I've actually navigated to. And then lastly, you want to activate your window to dismiss the splash screen. That's kind of your contract at that point, telling the OS, hey, my window's ready to be painted. Actually swipe away, dismiss the splash screen, and show my UI for me. Here's a good example of actually reloading state on app.xaml.cs. So a couple things I didn't mention last time I definitely want to highlight now. For those of you who haven't played around with VS, XAML projects in Win8 look very, very similar to other XAML technologies and other desktop legacy application development tools. We have app.xaml, we have app.xaml.cs. You do file a new project, you'll get your main page, you'll get your user control. The differences are in the subtleties. You won't see a root visual where you have to set content. You'll actually have content on a window, as you see here. The same paradigms, but the difference is there is no concept of a root visual. You don't have one just area where you can always just, every time you get a startup event, that you just show one type of UI. This is why we have a window.content property. It has the ability, regardless of how you've been spun up, you want to provide that particular UI for that particular context, and that's how you do it. And then again, window.current.activate, it's your ability to actually activate the window and dismiss the splash screen. This is an example of on-search activated. Here we're actually detecting if we've already set content to the window. In the case that we haven't, we can create it. In the case that we have, you know what, there's no point in creating it. And we'll talk about it a little bit what main page looks like. But the idea is main page is effectively a frame. And that's my container for the navigation stack. It's the container that detects whether I should navigate, whether I should push to a different page, or whether I should just show the existing page that I'm already on. And again, I'm activating my window at the same point. If you notice, I'm also passing in the query text, and I'm allowing whatever page view I've designed to actually handle whatever view it wants to show up. So somebody earlier today came up to me with the scenario, hey, I actually have 6 different views, and based on that view, I might want to filter my results and show something completely different. Here's your opportunity. You navigate to the search page. Based on the view you want to show, you can filter the results from the actual search query on whatever you want to actually provide to your end user. So my XAML app integrates with charms. This is that little dance that nobody seemed to find hilarious that I did. The idea is you can light some of these new things up within your app. It's pretty funny to watch my mom use her computer because she's really about Control-C, Control-V. That's her favorite thing. So whether she's using Notepad to store all her passwords and she Control-Vs them right into like Bank of America Online, she likes to use that paradigm. I think it's a horrible idea. She doesn't understand that yet, but slowly but surely I'm making my way through it. The idea is we've taught people a long, long time about certain gestures and paradigms that they're using for the OS. And with Windows 8, you saw a lot about what Jensen's talk was, reteaching some of these new touch interaction models. It's showing about swiping. It's showing about the charms. The idea is all these parts can really make a cohesive system. But the beauty of it is every app that actually participates into these charms makes the system even more rich. It has the ability to allow the end user to say, you know what, I have content from this type of app, and I can actually send it to over there. So it's effectively like in the words of Michael Scott, a win-win-win. Not only does the user win, you as content developers actually win because now your content becomes spread around throughout different sets of mediums. And the other app, app B, now wins because that app is more prevalent and now is a user of sending out content. So the idea is when app A participates as a source and app B participates as a target, together the end user now has this ecosystem and he has no idea what's going on, right? He just knows I have a URL that I want to send out to an email. I have a picture I want to post to Facebook. I have something I want to tweet. I have data from here that I want to pass over there. And the system of Windows 8 allows this extremely, extremely easy. This is why we encourage you guys to actually take advantage of it. This is the value add. This is what's going to make apps really, really pop in the system. And the more of these that we have together really make all the other apps even better. So let's actually show some integration. And I'll go back to my little Nike. So I've actually clicked on memories again, and it probably got terminated, and that's why you're seeing the actual splash screen again. And I'll swipe into a new build experience. Because I'm picking on owner so much, let's actually just continue with that. I can actually click on owner, and again, nothing happened in the app, right? The app doesn't know what I just did. I personally just touched on the app. It's an explicit decision of what image I want to do something to. I can swipe in, and I can click share. Now you'll see all the apps that have actually participated as a share target. In this scenario, I only have Socialite. But you're seeing a couple different things here. The app is providing a name. It's providing a description. And that's all done from memories. Memories is dictating, hey, I have data for you. This is what I'm going to do to present my data to another app. Once I send it off to the ether, it's up to app B to handle. But from my perspective, I'm going to give you a byte stream, which represents the image. I'm actually going to give you a title, and I'm actually going to give you a description. So now, once I've actually invoked one of the apps, Socialite spins up, and it now got the on-share activated event, and it provides UI. So for those of you who have played with Socialite, when you click on a tile, you definitely don't see this, right? You don't see a picture of Ono's face. you see something completely different. You see all the things that are in your app that Socialite wants to provide you for the main activation. In this scenario, Socialite has decided, you know what, we're going to show you a thumbnail image of the app, we're going to provide you an opportunity to actually have a description, and then we're going to handle that on behalf of your end user. So I can actually click here, I can actually say, owner is sleeping and not doing work, Joe. Joe is one of our bosses. And actually click on share in Facebook. And now Socialite has done whatever it's going to do with that app. If you check my Facebook page, I promise it's already up there. Owner, I'll be tagging you after this. You can bet you trust me, I'm tagging you after this. And let's switch back. So that was actually invoking the share contract from within an app. What did we actually do there, though? You notice an actual an explicit decision by the end user to actually click on an image. That was all built into Memories. Memories decides what the user interaction of actually for the selection model for share. However, once I click share, you either have data or you don't. There's some scenarios that I'll show you later where Memories doesn't have data to share. And as a user, I don't understand why, right? If I click on an album, maybe I expect to share the entire album, but Memories doesn't support that. You actually have the ability to respond to the user and say, hey, at this point in time, I don't support sharing. Do X, Y, Z to support it. You also get a data requested callback event into your app. And there's a Share Manager API, which you can listen to and decide and say, hey, I care about sharing. Let me make sure I handle all the events properly. At this point, you can send as much or as little data as you want. In the case that we just saw, I provide an actual byte stream image with some text describing the title and description. But you can provide an URL, you can provide rich text, you can provide selection, you can provide whatever you want. Those APIs are extremely rich. There's a data package format that you can actually give whatever you want to set. You can literally use whatever you want to share. And again, the deferral semantics I talked about earlier, if you actually have a large data package and you want to spend some time setting it up, that image wasn't small, you actually need to use the deferral semantics to make sure you don't get killed. And here you go. Here's the exact snippet of code that I'm using. And that, to prove it, I'm actually using the Memories photo and Memories photo description. So I showed you search activation, but now I'm actually going to show you a little bit more about search. So I'm back to my Memories app, and I actually swipe in, and I click search. Now what do you see? The Memories app actually owns quite a bit more UI. It owns search Memories, which is the title. It actually says search for album, which is set by Memories. And then it actually shows you the history that I've searched. What it also does, it allows me to provide, well, I have a keyboard, so I'll just use it. I can say my. And what you notice there, I'm actually providing suggestions based on a filtered list from within my app. I have 2 albums that start with the word my, and I'm showing you, hey, if you click on this, you actually get this result back. I can still search for whatever I want. I'm just going to get empty results because my app doesn't have results that match your query. But in this case, I can actually click on my daughter's birthday party and show exactly that. In a second scenario, kind of a V2, if you will, for Memories, when you actually click my daughter's birthday party, maybe you shouldn't show your search results. You should actually just jump right into the app. And that's sort of an improvement that we can make in this app and something we'll do in the next version. But the idea is you have a lot of opportunity. So for what you saw for those actual search results or search suggestions were very static. All you saw were strings. There are other apps like Bing and the Weather app which can provide rich suggestions. Those provide you images if you want to show a part, or the Build app does this as well, where they can give you a thumbnail of the person that you're looking for. Or in the Weather app, they actually provide you a little snippet of what that actual city looks like at this point in time. Bing does this as well. I got another question earlier today about, hey, I have a lot of server-side logic. What do I do about that? Everything you're showing me is really local to the app. Well, absolutely. The Bing app actually does that. It actually takes whatever the query is, sends it to the cloud, and say, hey, give me suggestions based on this, the exact same way Bing does it today. So you can actually do all these things today in your app, server-side, local, whatever you want. It's your choice. The API is rich enough to handle both sides of the scenario. So popping back in, talked a little bit about the integration with search. What are we actually doing? We get the query submitted callback, which again, that's the event that fires off. And I'm going to go a little quicker through this because I've shown it a little bit more. And hopefully you guys have a better understanding of actually implementing this in your app. You can provide suggestions through the suggestions requested event, and all you do is literally in C#, it's an I list. Anything that implements list, you just pass it in. So you create your list, you filter out your list using some string APIs, and you put it back in. And this is actually a great opportunity for using the navigation APIs. And that's exactly what Memories does. When you get a search result, whether you've been activated for it or your app is already running, all we do is navigate you to the search page. Again, we mentioned, though, in V2, maybe when you actually click on one of those particular results, you actually dive right into that album as opposed to seeing the search page. And you can all do that within your app. This is exactly what the API looks like. I'm actually listening to a search pane manager. I gather the request, I create a filtered list, and I just pass it right back. Then for the actual query submitted is the exact same line of code as you saw on the on-search navigator. It's really basic and really simple. Let's talk about navigation. We've actually been sort of dancing around it, but I actually want to show you some of the things. For those of you that are familiar with XAML navigation in the past, you've known it's been normally part of the SDK or their toolkit. It didn't actually ship with the framework. Well, we fixed that with this. It's the first major time we're actually shipping the XAML navigation framework as part of the actual app platform. So you have it from default in this namespace. You'll notice a lot of familiar semantics around the frame and page navigation modes that we'll talk about in a second. You also get the same sort of events. You have the ability to go forward, to go backwards. And it's kind of the basics of XAML navigation brought to you guys for Windows 8. So for those of you who are not familiar with this, the concept is a frame is a content control. It's a navigation container. It has the ability to hold XAML in and of itself. So inside of our main page, if you actually look at if you actually dissect what Memories does, it has a main page that it creates, but then inside of it, it has a frame. And that frame, all it does is navigate between pages. This is really awesome if you have multiple people developing your application, because I can say, you develop page 1, you develop page 2, you develop page 3, and I'll work on the Chrome on the outside, and I'll do whatever I can. And you can navigate between them, and that's the beauty of it. The idea is pages represent this discrete set of content, right? Pages are static content or dynamic, but they can switch and never have to know about each other. Or you can actually pass data between them. So I can have frame holding page 1, I can navigate quickly to page 2, and I can navigate quickly to page 3. And the idea is they take up the same amount of space on screen, they just display different content. So let's actually show this now. Let's see how we do this. So I don't want to show Memories. I actually want to show Visual Studio. It is a level 300 talk, so might as well show some code. So the idea is if you look at my project stack, I have page 1, page 2, and page 3. And then I have main page, which all it has is a frame. So if I actually run this, please demo gods be nice. And I apologize for the color scheme. My color blindness comes in from now and then, so I don't even know what colors I'm looking at right now. You have a title, you have a back button. Those are kind of the basics. And the templates actually help you out with this a little bit. But what you're seeing is page 1, and I have the ability to actually navigate to page 2 and go back to page 1. Real simple. I can even change the color of page 1 and go back, change the color, and then go to page 2, there we go, and go back, and it didn't preserve any of the context, right? It's literally reloading the page. The other scenario we did talk about, though, was actually passing data. So I can choose a combo box, choose football, go to page 2, and actually football gets displayed because I'm literally passing an event art. So in this case, I'm actually passing a string. It's an object. It's open source. It's whatever you want to pass. And that's how you can share data between your objects. I can even navigate to page 3 and type in a text box over here. Hello, world. Owner, wake up. And then I, again, navigate back to page 1. But if I go back, it's all gone again. Why is that happening? Those are some of the caching semantics that we actually want to do. So if I quickly jump back into a slide. Navigation history. So what you saw is the ability to actually go forward. I explicitly navigated from page 1 to page 2 to page 3. But all that back button does is say, hey, can you go back? Then go back. Can you go back? Then go back. If you can't, that's where I stumbled a little bit. If I'm on page 1, there's nowhere to go back to. However, the more you create a stack, the more you can keep track of it. And using the go forward and go back semantics are very similar to what HTML has. And this is really powerful for the XAML stack. It's kind of a net new for you guys and something I'm pretty excited about. Again, the frame is what controls this. It's the outer container. It is where you call go back and go forward, navigate mode, go to a particular page by the navigate control. One of the things that we didn't see, though, or we did see, which wasn't super useful, was the ability to actually save some state. So if I press Shift F5, I'm trying my best to have no tricks up my sleeve for you guys. And on each line of code, or in each page, I'm just kidding. Thanks for being on top of that, owner. This .navigation cache mode equals, gotta love IntelliSense enabled. And I can even take this line of code, drop it on page 3, press F5, and away we go. Build, 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 build. You'll see in a second, I promise. There we go. So now, I can go to page 2, come back to page 1. I can change the color from, don't laugh at me, I think that's green, I think that's purple. Go to page 2, come back, and it's still purple. Wow, it's amazing. But now if I go to page 3, and this is actually a real scenario. How many people have phones where you're typing a text message or you're typing an email, and then you go to do something else, and you come back and your message is gone? Those are some of the things that kind of sucks. You don't want to have your user to actually lose their data in the process of actually switching around, specifically if it's even in your app. So the ability to type my name, go back, and go forward, and actually have that history preserved is pretty powerful. Whether it's a user control, whether it's state that's changed, whatever it is, the page automatically does that with one line of code. You don't have to serialize your text box and then read it back out when that page has been loaded. It's automatically done for you by the stack. You see the slides now, right? Yes. Lastly, you heard a lot about the animation library. Transitions is a big part of the navigation framework. So all we've seen so far is page 1, just come in page 2, just appear on top of page 3. But all of this fast and fluid talk, metro style, that's not really evident in some of the apps I'm showing you. Well, we've made it possible for you to integrate the animation library as part of Windows 8 for the look and feel specifically with transitions. So you saw a little bit with memories, where we're doing a little bit more than what animations library wanted, but again, everything was fluid. All the content flowed in from the left to right. For frames, you have the ability to support entrance-themed transitions. So when a new theme, or when a new page comes in, its entrance is actually themed properly. And it looks exactly how apps look when you're switching between the splash screen into your app, or even when you're switching between apps. Those themes, your app can actually take advantage of. And you have multiple different transitions available. John Papa, who I believe will have a talk in 30 minutes, will go into a deep dive on actually how to use those transitions and the personality in general as part of your controls and your XAML platform. So everything you want to build and make it look like Windows 8, that's what we're trying to do for you guys. You can actually take advantage of everything that's sleek about the system directly into your app with a few lines of codes. And of course, we're actually going to show you that. So if I pop back into Visual Studio, I can go to mainpage.xaml, and within the frame, I can write this out, but it's a lot. Whoa, come on. There it is. No. I should have just typed it out myself. Here we go. You're not a rookie. Let's drop it in there. Great. Frame supports a collection property called content transitions. And in there, you can put in multiple types of transitions. Here, I've used the entrance theme transition, and I've given it a horizontal offset of 200. All that really means is that from sorry, I just want to make sure this compiles while I talk. What is you saying? I already pressed F5. All that really means is when you'll see that subtle transition, I don't know if you guys just noticed it, but when that initial page came in, it actually came in from the right at an offset of 200. You can make a really gratuitous demo where it's coming in from all the way off and kind of do some sort of PowerPoint swoop in. But the idea is, if I navigate to page 2, you get the same transition. Going back, you get the same transition. And again, there are multiple different types of transitions available to you in your app. So let's start wrapping up a little bit. So we talked about the adding animation libraries, and that's, again, the exact same sample code I just gave you. I put a lot of the code that I'm talking about in the slides, so as appendix, so if you guys actually are looking for some of these things, we have SDK samples, we have a lot of code slides, and there's an appendix slide at the end of this where it talks a little bit more about some heavy code. I encourage you guys to go grab it, try it out tonight, play around with it, and start building some cool apps. So let's actually sum it all up. We've talked a lot about sort of different features, right? And I don't want it to feel like I'm just showing you contracts and then charms and then lifecycle. The point of this all is to really talk about what your app can do to light up with Windows 8, what your app can do to actually jump for the next point. Again, Joe Stegman took you to XAML kind of 101 for Windows 8. This is effectively 102. I want your apps to sort of jump to the next level and really make sure it lights up on screen. I'm not here to tell you what users or what great apps look like. You guys are pros at this. This is what you guys do for a living. You develop apps. But I am here to tell you on behalf of users what I expect from great apps and what I've seen people do and what we all as users would like to do with awesome apps. The idea is when I go to an app, I have a goal in mind. I'm not just tinkering around. I want to go from A to B. I want to flow through my app. I want it to be smooth. I want it to be quick. I want it to be fast and fluid. I want all these things to just light up without anything happening, right? That's something you can utilize the navigation stack for. You can use history. You can use journaling, all with simple APIs, these minor little tweaks you can make in your app, and it really makes a big, big difference to the user experience. Again, we're teaching a lot of different paradigms and shifts with Windows 8 about the charms, about the app bar, about the backstack. All these integration features and gestures and paradigms. Use them, employ them in your apps, take advantage of them. They're really easy to use, they're simple code snippets, and they're just this much more of code that you add, and your app just adds that much more value to the end user. You create more reasons why people want to interact with your app. You create richer content. You create the ability for your content to be exposed to thousands and thousands of different points, right? The idea is we're selling all these on Windows 8 machines. All these boxes automatically just light up. All of your apps automatically just light up. And the idea is, again, if I'm watching a movie here and I close it and I go back on a plane and I open it up, I shouldn't be impeded from my progress. Same with a book, the same with any article I'm reading, whatever it is. Take advantage of the lifecycle semantics, understand the new paradigms in the new world, and how you guys can actually employ them inside of your apps. That's the idea that we're trying to bring. We're trying to make sure you guys can know what the feature set is, but then know how to actually implement them in your app. And that's what the value prop is. The idea is for you guys to take advantage of all the things we've built and make them pop for the end users. Your users want great apps. You guys build great apps. You guys have complex scenarios. But adding a little bit more feature set really makes everything shine. So I do want to take a second and talk about some related sessions before I finish up. This is mostly for the viewers at home, but you have your kind of XAML 101, Joe Stegman's talk. John Papa has a great, great styling talk and animations with sort of the Windows 8 personality right after this. Tim Hewer is also giving a talk. Yes, the famous Tim Hewer. Tim Hewer is giving a talk on Friday about sort of the tips and tricks using XAML. It's really like the top 10 list, what to do, what not to do. And then again, a deep dive in some of the contracts, share, search, and also the fundamentals of the Metro-style app lifecycle. Lastly, there's some further reading. There's some documentation up. And I encourage everybody, pick up your device, play with it, open it up, crack it open, start banging away on Visual Studio. And please, please provide feedback. It's a developer preview. You've heard a lot about that, and I can't stress it enough. We want to make changes. We want to make opportunity investments. We want to get feedback from the community and understand the different places that we need to improve upon. This is the point of this, right? This is a feedback. This is interactive. You guys start using this stuff. You tell us what to do next, and we keep iterating on the process. Thanks a lot, everybody. I appreciate all your time.